there's 48 people registered, but we knew end of the day on Friday, the chances of us having 48 people. So how about we just do a raise of hands? Oh, you got it? Let's raise our hands. There's like 12 of us in here. How many people have never used an AI tool? All right. It's okay. It's okay. That's why we're here, right? How many people have played around with maybe one or two? Yeah. How many people feel like they're pretty good at it? All right. Experts? Any experts besides him? No? Okay. Thank you so much again for coming. My name is Stephanie Schott. I'm the Senior Director in our Office of Digital Learning and Strategy. We're a new-ish office. We've been around since 2020, kind of as a result of 2020. We really didn't get started on our real mission as an office until a couple of years ago. And so our office is composed of the instructional design team at AU. We work with academic units to develop and support all of the fully online graduate programs. So I am here joined by one of my senior instructional designers, Nick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick DeMayo, and I've been at AU for 2 years. It's good to see some familiar faces. Thanks for hanging out today with us. And I'm very lucky to be assigned to SIS, where you could hear my cheering section. Thank you all so much for being here.
And this whole presentation is a result of a collaboration with some wonderful faculty from COGOD.
Thank you. I am Leif Ulstrup. I teach as an adjunct in the IT and analytics department. I teach a class, a half-semester class that introduces MBA students to IT and information for business strategy and operations. And I'll give you a little bit more detail on it. But it's been a major plug for Nick and Stephanie. They're awesome, and it's been a great collaboration.
Thank you. And our other faculty member couldn't be here today, but he went ahead and created a video that we will play real quick.
I'm Professor Erran Carmel of COGOD, and I want to welcome you to a futuristic new style of teaching. I carefully create a script of my online class lecture, and then voila, I make a video lecture. I can easily tweak it next semester. No sweat. I want to thank Nick and Stephanie for helping to make all this happen, and especially to Adjunct Professor Ulstrup, who is a true pioneer in everything AI. I'll hand it over to them. See ya.
Have any of you met him in person before? Yeah. You think that's him? No, it is not. It is not him. This was a really quick, very quick AI presentation, content presentation he put together for us since he couldn't be here, using the two tools that we'll talk about today. So one of those tools is 11 Labs, and that is the audio generating tool. The other tool is HeyGen. That is the avatar generating tool. We're going to talk a little bit about, from a faculty perspective, how this can be used in the classroom after Nick and I show you a little bit more about the tools themselves. And then we're going to talk about the risks, have a little discussion. Please save your questions till the end if that's possible, just because we have a lot to get through. And we'll talk about next steps. So first up, just some quick AI tool benefits. I know this isn't the only presentation this week on AI. So you're going to hopefully have heard this before. But time efficiency, specifically when we're talking about these two tools, the amount of time it gives back to faculty is quite amazing. Consistency, so using the same tools for content presentation across your course is going to provide the student with that consistent experience. Accessibility, both of these tools allow you to create audio in multiple languages in the click of a button for students with all different types of language skills. And then flexibility. These are unbelievably easy to use within minutes, within seconds, to create some content presentations that in the past have taken quite a while. This slide, actually, and many of these slides were created in how long? Minutes, because we went ahead and just put our proposal into an AI tool and it created the presentation slides for us. Yeah, minutes. Very, very fun. As far as best practices, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed, right? There's AI tools out the yin-yang right now. You turn on the radio, you open up a newspaper online, of course, and you see all of these tools. So how do you get started? Do you just ignore it? Are you too overwhelmed? Or do you click on the very first one? And our advice is to just start small. Start with one. Start maybe with one of these if you haven't played around yet. Talk to each other. Ask students to play around with a couple with you. Ask a colleague, ask a staff member, just be like, hey, I wanted to see if you could do this real quick, or if you listen to this, what do you think? So keep that conversation going. Think about it. We'll talk about risks at the end of this conversation. There are risks with any new technology. With these tools, HeyGen specifically, it's a whole different level with the biometric data that you're giving over. So you do have to think about it, and you want to be intentional. Like any other instructional technology tool, don't just use it to use it because you think it's cool. Use it because it helps. Don't feel like you have to use it. Play around with it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, move on. And stay updated. We're at the beginning of this, and we'll talk about that even more. But you got to keep up to it. Just because a tool's been working for you doesn't mean that's the best tool, doesn't mean that has the best privacy or usage policy anymore. So keep looking. Don't stop. 11 Labs. So like I said before, this is, go ahead and go to the next slide. This is an AI voice generating tool. That QR code should take you right to the website, which is also listed there. It creates human-like speech in over 32 languages. Again, at the click of a button. We have actually adopted this tool in our office. So for anybody who develops an online course with us, this is actually a media option for you. It's a text-to-speech tool. It's really easy to use. So if you go to the website, this is what the page looks like without even logging in. But you can play around with it at the bottom of the page even, and you'll see it has some different things. So text-to-speech is its primary function. You can use existing voices in there, so you don't have to use your own voice. You can absolutely type your text, choose a voice they already have in their library, and you come out with the audio. This has been a game changer for us in the course development world because we spend so much time producing audio and video for faculty and for courses. Think of all of the lectures, all of the PowerPoints that we create for our online courses. Now we can put the text, your script in here, and have the voiceover, whether that's you or somebody in their library. We've actually used this with faculty who have speaking disabilities, and it's changed the game for them because they can give their lecture without having that pressure anymore. So we'll go ahead, and once you log in, you get this screen. So if you want to go to the next slide. So this is what it looks like. And you literally can just start typing something. Or you can do what I did this morning, which is you can pick on one of these, get started. I think I chose a meditation, which you'll hear in a minute, and it actually does the text for you. And then over here in this drop down, you can pick yourself. If you want to go ahead and dub your voice, it takes 30 seconds. It actually won't even take more than that. It doesn't allow you. It just needs 30 seconds of you talking about anything, and it can take your voice. And then they also have that media library I was talking about. These are really fun to play around with. So this adjusts your voice and how you speak. So the stability, the similarity, but my favorite is the style exaggeration. So if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of an inflection in your voice, you now can. You just move that dial along. It will add it will add excitement. It will completely change the tone of your voice. So unbelievably easy to use, like I was talking about with that flexibility. Within seconds, you log in, you've got a audio recording you could use for anything you want. So I'm going to show you just my example. You've heard me talk now. You know what my voice sounds like. This is not me.
Take a deep breath in and gently exhale. Remember, focus on your breath. Listen to the soft ambient sounds of the evening as they wrap around you.
So not only did I not record that, I also didn't type that. I just clicked that meditation button and it did it for me. So what I do have is that my voice is in the system because we've been playing around with it. So it did have my voice sample, which was me reading a page out of a book that was on my desk at the time, and it did that. So within less than 2 minutes, that happened. You can download this and then upload it into your course, or we uploaded it into this presentation as an audio file. So very, very easy. There are more advanced functionalities, which we have played around with, and I am going to let Leif talk about that.
So one of the options with 11 Labs is a recent option. It said agents up there. And there's this idea of using the AI so that it's what's interacting with you, not just you typing in a script. So if you try this, we'll see if this works. I'm the iTech 617 AI assistant. How can I help you today? What's the first assignment in the class? The first assignment in the class is to confirm acceptance of the syllabus and AU policy, complete the intro assignment on IT experience, and review the DET project instructions and charter. You should also consider classmate team options as this is important.
What's the hardest assignment in the class?
It's great that you're thinking ahead. The syllabus doesn't explicitly state which assignment is the hardest, but it does mention that the DT project is a significant.
Thank you very much. We're done.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could help. Please let me know if you have any further questions. Good.
So that took me 2 minutes to set up. I gave it my syllable, and I gave it the instructions to the function student. I didn't do any tuning. Just did that just to give you kind of a preview of what you can do.
Yeah, so he didn't have that script written. He uploaded his syllabus. He had a voice sample in the system and was able to do that with his syllabus that he already had. So, like I said, as far as if you're probably having 1 or 2 reactions right now. Wow, that's really cool. I want to try it out. Or that is really scary. I don't want it to come near it.
So it's using the information that I gave it to generate the responses. And I've not used this 11 Labs. This is a new feature. I haven't used it in a class context. You can give it instructions that tell it, and I did in this case, stick to the material that I provided, the documents that I provided. And I've done a little bit of testing with it. It didn't seem to go off the rails. But I think you'd have to, if you use it in a classroom setting or as an option, you'd have to have something that keeps reminding the students, go back, check the syllabus. You need to have those kind of checks. But those tools are getting much, much better in terms of sticking to the material. And in this case, that was an interaction with an AI tool, OpenAI's model, but you can choose the model as well. But what you can do is you can play around with it and refine how it responds to the responses. But you're absolutely right. There are those kinds of risks involved. But it may be a great modality for a student who they're out taking a walk, they want to review something for a class, or they want to prepare. This becomes an option.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about the risks, right? So if you're in the camp of, hey, I want to go try this, like I said, our office has a single creator license that we use during course development. So it isn't something that we offer at an enterprise license like Mentimeter where you could have just requested that. There are options. There's a free option. You can go ahead and just play around with it if you want. And then it is really affordable if you would ever really want to use it. So part of our office, in addition to just developing online courses, is to explore and identify new tools. And then we often pilot them within our team before we would get a license. Yellow Dig is one of our tools. That's a tool that we found, that we piloted, that we launched, and then the university was able to acquire it. So that's where we are with these tools. This is something that we were able to get approved through the OIT office, and it is affordable, so it fit within our budget. And we're still working on that with HeyGen. We do not have any type of licensing yet for HeyGen, which I will let Nick talk about.
Thanks, Stephanie. Very interesting. I won't be leading any guided meditations right now, but that's not to say that I won't be able to do it in the future with such a low lift to do so. But I'm going to introduce HeyGen to you all here, and I'm Nick, Senior Instructional Designer. And HeyGen is a tool that we begin to experiment with for iTech 617, which is a course you just heard a little bit about through that chat agent. And it is an AI avatar generating tool that if you scan the QR code, you can get right to it. You can get started with it for free to build your own AI avatar that looks just like you, just as Professor Carmel's look just like him. And I'll show you a different one here in a minute. But you can also experiment with the library of ready-made avatars to really get your learning content into a video form super quickly. If you wanted to go the AI avatar generating route, it's a 5-minute setup, which includes an identification verification. So this is to ensure that I didn't take a recording of Stephanie without her knowledge and created an AI avatar of her. She would herself need to get in front of her webcam and verify Stephanie, am providing you, HeyGen, with this video so that you can create an avatar for me. So that is one of the safety features for your biometric information, and it can ensure that you don't steal somebody's identification and create deepfakes, which I'm sure that you've heard in many different circles is not good. And whenever you do this, whenever you create your avatar, here, let's see if this is going to work. No, it gives you the detailed instructions as you go along. So you need not have any previous video editing, recording experience, and you just get on and it'll guide you through the whole process. And with that, you create one avatar and you can create multiple looks and even attach different voices to that avatar, inclusive of ChatGPT to create those scripts. And also 11 Labs is integrated. So you can use the 11 Labs voice that you've already created in your HeyGen videos. And I want to walk over here and show you some of these features that are in the player. I know it's small in the back, but I'm just going to describe what you should be seeing. You can adjust the speed of the narration. You can add different intonation, some more emotion to your voice, and you can also translate. So I needn't know any Italian, but I could type my English lecture and use the translator to put that into Italian. And you'll be surprised, I think, by how well this could work. I'm going to show you an example here. Hello. Thank you so much for attending our conference session on using AI avatars to power a new generation of online learning. So that was my voice, as you could somewhat recognize it if you know me. That sounds pretty close. Well, let's say, for example, that you didn't want your voice. You wanted to be British instead.
Hello. Thank you so much for attending our conference session on using artificial intelligence avatars to power a new generation of online learning.
And now, this was a really mind-blowing instance for me. Knowing a little bit of Spanish, being able to type in, and even if you didn't know Spanish or Italian, like my previous example, you can have the translation tool do this for you and get something like this. Hola, muchas gracias por asistir a nuestra sesión de conferencia sobre el uso de avatares de IA para impulsar una nueva generación de aprendizaje en línea. Right, and again, I didn't record any of this. It took about 20 seconds to write that script. You can integrate this with ChatGPT, as I mentioned, so to help you further summarize, shorten your scripts, yada yada, and have a nice high-quality video. So now you can start thinking about, if it just takes you a matter of seconds to create a video, what sort of things might you create a video for? And this is the different, just as we had shown you for 11 Labs, where you can feel free to adopt this in your own in the free version. I wanted to point out that it is a strict one video avatar per account with the free version, but that isn't to say that you're stuck with just you yourself where you're sat right now to create your AI avatar. There are multiple looks and multiple different voices that you can use on top of your avatar. When you go and record your first avatar, just be aware that whatever's in the background will be in the background of your avatar. You can change it later. And if you wear glasses, be careful about glare if you create your video avatar. So if there's a glare on your glasses, like mine, that glare will persist throughout all of your AI-generated videos. So yeah, that's just a couple pointers. More will be shared in our follow-up email after the presentation, but very excited about HeyGen and the ability for you all to try this out. If you like it, that is fantastic. But also there's plentiful tools out there that can do something similar as this.
So yeah, so Nick, that was not Nick speaking in a British accent being recorded on his video cam. That was his avatar. So so really fast. and really quick to create. And again, we will talk about the risks and the challenges of getting these tools full and using them just personally and professionally at an administrative level, what that means and what we're looking at. But we're going to let Professor Ulstrup talk a little bit more.
Stephanie, thank you. And as I mentioned, it's been a pleasure working with Nick and Stephanie on this. Back in the spring, Professor Erran Carmel approached me about a refresh of iTech 617, the online version of the class, for the fall of 2025. And so we started collaborating together this summer. I typically teach the on-campus course for the MBAs of iTech 617, and Professor Carmel teaches 616, which is a version of the course for the entire semester. And again, it's focused on helping the students learn about information in business, information systems and information in business for strategy and operations and so forth. And a big part of the class emphasizes the adoption of emerging technology. So we stress with the students to learn about what's coming down the pike in information technology and think about how would you apply them in business. So one of the joys of teaching the class is that as an instructor, you've got to stay several chapters ahead of where technology is going. The downside is it requires a lot of refreshing material every time you teach it. So Professor Carmel and I, as we were designing the online version, wanted to make sure that we could replace components of the class in a little bit easier fashion. And we started thinking, could we use some of these AI tools to help us do it? And that's where HeyGen and 11 Labs came into play. Is our idea is that over time, we may want to replace some module, and we would be able to do that by just giving it a script and be able to replace it with more modern information. So that's sort of the framing. And so as a producer of the information or the content, it has a lot of potential in terms of making life easier, as both Nick and Stephanie talked about, and giving us a lot of different options to play around with. And I think also on the student side of it, as I demonstrated with that interactive voice capability, you could also make it through text. It doesn't have to be voice, but the idea of these agents from a learner's perspective, the ability to interact with material from the course, think about it, prepare themselves for assignments and so forth, but doing it interactively with your content and material is becoming more and more of a reality for the students. And so my sense is we are at the early stages of this super cycle with respect to what's happening with AI. This is almost like the microcomputer being introduced in the late 70s. I think it's that revolutionary a cycle, maybe 30 or 40 years of this. And so when you think about the technology that we're using here, this is the worst the technology is going to get. And as we have worked with it, the four of us have worked together over the last 6 months on this. We've seen a number of improvements in the technology itself. And so I think this is one of those things where it's kind of startling sometimes week to week what is now available to us. So I would just encourage you all to, if you're interested in learning about using these tools, you have to think you've got to take a little bit of patience and some perseverance, because the tools, sometimes you'll use them and you'll have a very complex set of instructions and it responds beautifully and you're amazed. And then other times you give it something that you would think would be relatively simple and the result is so-so. And so a lot of experimentation is needed to really figure out what's the best way to use these tools. But I would encourage you to start doing it because these tools are getting better and better. There are lots and lots of free tools available, including Google's Notebook LM, which is a fantastic tool for research and so forth. There's a professor at Wharton, Ethan Mollick, and I always recommend people read his material. He's got a great blog called One Useful Thing. I don't think he sleeps. He posts on Twitter and Blue Sky and LinkedIn experiments that he's running. And his background is in developing gaming technology for learning purposes. And so he was many, many chapters ahead on the utility. And when these AI tools started coming along, started rapidly adopting them. So he's got lots of interesting ideas on how this can be used in education. Somebody to definitely follow. But I would just encourage you to take the time to dive in and don't just stop if it doesn't work on the first pass. He emphasizes you need 10 hours of fooling around with these tools before you start to really grasp what's possible. So until you get your 10 hours in, you don't yet, you're not yet qualified to render opinion whether this technology is going to be valuable or not. But I would just encourage to experiment with these tools. And there's so many opportunities. The Kogod School runs a second Fridays AI seminar, which is excellent. And Erran and Angela Virtue, Professor Virtue, they both facilitate it. The last session in December, Erran emphasized using these tools like ChatGPT to be a tool for the students to use to interact with, and developing prompts and things like that. So the students have an agent that they can interact with as ways that students can learn in different modes. So just encourage you to start experimenting. And if you're a researcher, the tools are invaluable with respect to research and organizing information. The things you can do with the free tools is totally amazing. So encourage you to do that.
Thanks. And I'm just going to provide a little bit of feedback from faculty who have used at least 11 Labs, because we have been using that since about October in our course developments. And really, from an AI perspective, you can go very full circle with this. So how many people have developed a fully online course and have had to record video, right? So a lot of times when we kick off course developments, faculty are like, oh, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been teaching this class. I can go into the studio. I can do all my videos in one day. No problem. We're like, okay, yeah, we totally believe that, that you can do that. But actually sitting down and figuring out what you're going to say to be recorded and how that aligns with the PowerPoints directly so that we can put them together as a media team takes a lot more time. And that's usually the very first piece of feedback we hear is, I had no idea how long that was going to take. And then it takes our team a lot of time to put those pieces of media together in a way that is professional and meant to survive in the online world for a year or two. And so using these tools, for example, you could use a Gen AI tool like ChatGPT or Claude you could put in your talking points from your face-to-face lecture and ask it to create a script for you. And there'd still be a human element, right? You'd want to review it and make sure and edit it, but it would do a chunk of the work for you. You could then take that script, put it into 11 Labs, and it would create the audio file. You could stop there, put it as a podcast in your class that students could download and listen to on the go. Then you could, in theory, use HeyGen, throw that in, because 11 Labs and HeyGen work together, create your avatar, spend about 5 minutes doing that, and you would have a full lecture presentation in less than an hour, less than a half an hour. You would never have to come into our studio. From our media production team, it cuts down their post-production and the time in the studio and the pre-production work with you significantly. So from a lecture creation perspective, it's a game changer. It really, really is. Not to say it's not without risks, right? So all you going out there like, oh, I don't know. I made those same faces. I always say that whenever new technology comes around, that I'm very excited and I'm also very scared of it at the same time. Those are the two feelings I feel simultaneously. So I want to take a minute to talk about the risks and challenges. So one of the first risks that you want to think about is go ahead, you can click on it, yeah, the intellectual property concerns, right? So whether you're using any of those tools I described, a Gen AI tool, 11 Labs, HeyGen, you are putting your content into another system that you don't own. And so you do have to think about that. With the Gen AI tools, where you're just putting in your text, that's one thing. The barrier that we're coming across with HeyGen, just from this is really, really cool, but then when we dig into the terms and policies, there's this new privacy policy that's there. It's, when you create an account, you click, yeah, sure, I agree to it, and you move on. Well, in HeyGen, there's a biometric privacy policy. So it's a completely different type of privacy policy where you're giving them your biometric information to create that lifelike version of you. And so it's a different thing. And so that is why at this point, we don't have that tool at AU to really use beyond our free accounts we've been messing around with, because we are really concerned about that. That's not something that we necessarily at this point want to take the liability on. But it's a conversation that we're continuing to have. And then the other thing, too, is the academic integrity and ensuring the authentic learning experiences, right? So making sure that, back to my point, don't just use it because you want to use it because it's fun and it's easy and it's quick, but how does that add to your current classroom experience? And then the ethical considerations, right? How are we going to balance this with what we're teaching? And so one thing that we're very clear on when we create the 11 labs is we do let students know that this is an AI-generated voice, right? And that's something that they need to know, especially if we're using the professor's voice, so that we're transparent that we've used a tool to replicate that. And then as far as risk mitigation strategies, I just talked about that. So clear policies, as you all know, we just got the email this week with AAU coming up with that committee to talk about this and how we're using it. So if you haven't clicked on that link, it just kind of gives really basic guidelines at this point, but we're hoping that that expands over the coming weeks, hopefully. Transparency, like I said, just letting students know you did use these tools. That isn't you, right? Like one of the videos that Nick played around with your name was Rick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he would introduce himself and then he'd be like, he's like, I might look like Nick, but I'm Rick, right? So you can add that humor to it, but be transparent that you're using a different tool. And then just regular review. And we've already talked about that. Just continuously looking at it. Seeing, again, too, not just looking at tools for their functionality, but for their privacy policy and for their terms of use. So the other, just so that you know, and something to look at, if you're looking at these tools, another kind of red flag that we've come across from an administrative perspective with HeyGen is that there's some funky language in there about acquisition of them as a company. So, and that happens in startup companies a lot because their whole long-term strategy is to get bought out, right? But who buys them? Is it somebody in the United States? Maybe. Is it somebody in another country? Quite possibly, right? So you want to be looking at these things that I think we've grown in a habit to just kind of clicking through when we create accounts. Really think about it. The other piece that even if you do the free accounts on these, to check is a lot of them will have snuck in there in the privacy and security policies that you give them permission to use your voice or your likeness for training purposes, but you can opt out of it. You just have to shoot them an email. So shoot them the email is my advice. But if you just click through, you're giving consent for them to use that for training purposes. All right. So real quick, let's take a look at our poll. Let's see, what's our expertise level? Do we know? Oh no, we did the hands. So we've got a couple of experts in there. So real quick, if you want to just turn around, talk to somebody, and talk about maybe how you used it. The experts, right? You were an expert, and you said an expert, just a user. You were an expert. I feel like there were two experts. Now you're backing down. Okay, level below expert. All right. Well, real quick, just a couple of minutes. Turn around, talk to each other maybe about these tools, how you could use them in your classroom, or maybe why you wouldn't use them in your classroom. And we'll just circle back in a couple of minutes and share some examples.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like some good chats. Who wants to share out an example of how you have experts who were back down when I called them out, or how you could use these tools or another tool? Ready? I'm just going to start making people talk. Anyone?
Leif and Erran already know this one, but so I have asynchronous lecture videos for a couple classes, and I put the transcripts from all of those into a chatbot as a corpus that does essentially the chatbot version of what Leif showed in his AI voice agent. Feedback's been pretty good so far.
Anyone else? Ian. On this Friday, I know. Anyone?
Oh yeah,
Freaked out? Yeah, I feel you.
it's about corporate control.
It is.
So it's about giving up your, and like you said, something kind of, that's and say, well, and people on that. Mm-hmm.
Did you want to comment?
And so what happened?
Yeah.
And, it's OpenAI was set up to find this box.
Yep. Did you want to comment?
I think this idea that there's risk involved in this is true. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah. So making choices as to what you want to invest time. Also, some of these companies may just go away because there'll be a better thing that is developed and they disappear. They may not be bought, but they may disappear. And, so you just have to think about where you want to invest time and energy as well,
So the system, I had no marketing, you see this. That this is right. Nothing. And not something.
No.
So just in these tools, so there are those options, right? And what's challenging for a university who might be in budget constraints is that's very expensive, right? So like these have enterprise options where we could do that and we could ensure that the data is all stored on our servers. But that is outside of the normal workflow of us piloting the tool, right? So normally, like with HeyGen, what I've proposed is we would get a team license and we would have 3 people on our design and development team have the licenses who would work with faculty one-on-one. And maybe over 6 months, we'd have a dozen faculty who would have used it, right? But with those options, they're making this very hard and fast rule that we cannot negotiate legal terms or server storage. So it's this back and forth kind of game. Any other classroom ideas? Classrooms ideas?
So we have colleagues who did like brilliant like that. This is so great. He then
he was teaching a bunch of freshmen on the security dilemma, and he asked ChatGPT to write a fake security dilemma involving Canada and the United States. And so it was based on a real one. He had to edit it a little bit, and then he put it into. He had a gopher, beaver, an animated thing that it was all, he only used free versions. And so it was a gopher explaining in 2 minutes this fake security dilemma between the United States and Canada on the maple syrup shortage. It included dad jokes. And then it was animated and with a voice also. And he did the whole thing in about 15 minutes, and he is not swift on this. And as a teaching tool, I thought it was brilliant. He said it would have taken him an afternoon, and he did it in 15 minutes. So then he could, So it was really great for getting their attention, an automated beaver talking.
Yeah, the efficiency is great, but also the focus. So the faculty that we've even used 11 Labs on, our focus, even as instructional designers, has changed. Instead of just hey, you need to get those scripts done because you're in the studio on Tuesday and you need to have those talking points so we can put them in the teleprompter. It's more of, let's really look at your script. What are you saying? What are you delivering? How can we make this better? How can we make this more engaging? And we're able to spend more time on the content than we are on the production because we just put it in and it's done. So moving on, Nick, did you have an example?
Yeah, one thing real quick. So going on to the in-person teaching model, if you could create videos in a second with HeyGen or some kind of certain similar tool, might you create videos to give students feedback where you could take your written feedback and create just something a little bit more personal, really any idea that you can think to take something into writing and create video with it is seemingly more open as a possibility now.
There are benefits.
Yeah, we are not so far away, I don't think, for the technology to be able to have a video chatbot. So the presence there, the research is saying is good for students. Now, it's still so new. So is it that much better? Is it comparable to being in person, like in office hours, to ask those questions? Certainly, it gives a little bit more accessibility, a little bit more. Don't have to schedule time, perhaps, to have that video shared asynchronously. But yeah, it's a good question to keep thinking about.
And I think from an online course perspective, for our fully online courses, I can tell you absolutely that makes a huge difference to them, right? Because you're not having that instructor-student interaction on the regular like you would in a face-to-face environment. And we actually get that feedback already, just that they wish there was more of that. So online, especially. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it feels like you're there, that you're their instructor, right? That they don't get to see all the time and talk to. So just leaving with some kind of conclusions and next steps, nothing earth-shattering here, but future possibilities, personalized learning, just talked about that, the global reach, interactive simulations, and just, we talked a lot about how could we use this in the classroom as instructors, but what about students? So in an earlier conversation, you had brought up, Well, what is going to be the content presentation expectation of a student in 10 years in a business setting? Is it going to be doing this, or is it going to be doing that? So how can students maybe use these tools too? So efficiency, we've talked about that. Enhanced engagement. Yeah, these are just summary points. Risk awareness, making sure you're aware of the risks. Don't click through those terms and conditions, and continuous evaluation. So next step, explore the tools. If you feel comfortable, even if you're just watching YouTube videos on how other people are using these because you're not comfortable doing the free trials, just look into them. Collaborate, talk with each other, keep these conversations going, and provide feedback. We will be sending up a follow-up email with a list of some tools that we've even played around with recently that are really fun. To create this slide, actually, was one of them. So stay informed, and we will do our best to help you do that. Open questions. That's all we have.
Right. So in addition to the, data privacy concerns, your biometric data, we do know that AI and the servers, the computing that is needed to do that is very, very thirsty. It takes a lot of water. It takes a huge amount of space that can only potentially exacerbate climate change problems. So always keep that in the back of your mind, and to ask those questions is a good thing. If it's worse for the environment than handing paper, I'm not sure, but there is something there to think about in terms of what AI is doing to the planet.